All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, I wanted to really break down the Jets offensive coordinator candidate rumors that we've heard so far, right? Who are the guys that are currently being linked to the Jets? Now, according to the national mainstream media sources, it's looking like the Jets are casting a wide net. In other words, they're taking a look at a ton of different candidates here. But the name that's been linked to the Jets the most, I would say right now, is Darrell Bevell, former Jaguars OC, former Lions OC. He's the current QB coach of the Miami Dolphins. And that would be pretty interesting. In fact, I actually did a video on it a couple days ago. I'll leave that listed down below in the description box. But according to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, more names are added to the watch list here. Okay, a couple of curveballs. Let's start with Nick Caley, the current tight ends coach with the New England Patriots. He's 39 years old and started out as an offensive assistant back in 2015 and then got elevated to tight ends coach in 2017. And I think the first thing that kind of jumps out at you with Caley, he's a Josh McDaniels disciple. Josh McDaniels disciple, in total 7 years working with McDaniels. So your mind instantly starts thinking about quarterbacks. Derek Carr, probably less likely, but if you're a fan of guys like Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, three guys that have had success in the New England Patriots offense, that style of scheme, then maybe the chances of the Jets landing one of those quarterbacks go up. Now, I know there was a push from a lot of Patriots fans initially before this season started to make him the offensive coordinator before the whole Joe Judge and Matt Patricia thing came about. He was in consideration amongst the fans. Now, yesterday I texted a buddy, big Patriots fan. I'm like, hey man, like, what's your initial take on Caley? What do you think of him? And he just wrote back, LOL. Jonnu Smith has done nothing. So looking at Smith, looking at Hunter Henry, two guys that this organization invested a ton of money in, two guys that, you know, were frankly really, really good players with their respective teams in the Titans and Chargers, but definitely have had a production dip. I know both guys have, you know, dealt with injuries as well. But overall, it's an interesting name to talk about and link to this Jets team. Again, I know they're casting a wide net, but he doesn't really check the boxes of being a veteran, bringing in a ton of leadership, having a ton of experience under his belt. Again, 39 years old, hasn't been coaching for all that long. Would he be a definite 100% guaranteed upgrade over Mike LaFleur? I would say, I don't know. Okay, so next up is Eagles quarterback coach Brian Johnson. Another really, really young coaching candidate here. He's in his 30s. He's been a QB coach / OC since 2010, but just started in the NFL in 2021. Okay, so we're looking at experience. We're looking at, you know, the veteran term, the veteran definition, if you will. Johnson isn't really in that category, but we look at what he has done with the Eagles this season. It's been remarkable. Working with Jalen Hurts, working with Gardner Minshew. By the way, Jalen Hurts is actually one of my favorite players in the game. I love his story. Bama coming in, second round pick, trading away Carson Wentz, and I really like how Hurts, he just keeps proving people wrong, and just fun player to watch. I love how he keeps on growing, and Johnson is a big reason why. You know, he's taken another step forward this season. Granted, the Eagles have a lot of things figured out. They obviously added a ton of pieces around Hurts, but that's not to take credit away from Johnson whatsoever. In fact, Adam Schefter of ESPN recently said that he thought Brian Johnson should get a head coaching interview this cycle. Okay, so it's an interesting candidate, but again, you know, we can talk about the upside, we can talk about the potential, we could talk about passing concepts and this and that. Like, there's a lot of really likable traits, but the same things were said about Mike LaFleur when he was brought in. A young up-and-comer, passing game coordinator with the 49ers, a lot of potential. It's just going to take some time for him to grow into his own. Do the Jets want to I don't want to say fall into the same trap, but hire a guy without that veteran experience, without the long resume of working with good teams, with bad teams, having great seasons, having some poor seasons, just a guy who's seen it all. With Johnson, yes, you're getting that upside, but you're not really getting a ton of experience to go along with it at the NFL level. Okay, so next up is Marcus Brady, an offensive consultant with the Eagles right now. Before Philadelphia, he was the offensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts this season, but was fired, as we all know, back in Week 8. Back in Week 8, the Indianapolis Colts, under Brady's tutelage, was 30th in all of football. The Colts offense was averaging 16.1 points per game. Granted, no Jonathan Taylor. He was hurt. He got hurt, obviously, early in the season, but those are just not the numbers that you would like to see. And of course, whenever you're talking about a guy getting fired midway through the season, things probably aren't looking good on that side of the football. So that's one side of the coin. The other is understanding that Brady at one point in time was considered one of like the hottest up-and-coming coaches. He's 43 years old and actually spent a long time in the CFL, where he was a former quarterback, and then he was actually the offensive coordinator for the Toronto Argonauts from 2013 through 2017, ended up joining the Indianapolis Colts in 2018 as the quarterback's coach, and then of course was promoted not too long after that. But at the end of the day, it's the same. All three of these candidates are kind of in the same boat as far as upside, potential, what can they be one day, that type of thing, but they don't have the resume. They don't have, the long list of teams and quarterbacks that they've worked with. So interesting names, 100% interesting names so far, and I would make the argument that this next game is probably the most intriguing. It's Joe Brady, the current QB coach for the Buffalo Bills, and Jets fans all across the world know who Joe Brady is because he interviewed to be the head coach of the football team a couple years ago. Ended up going to Robert Saleh, but Joe Brady, we all know his story, right? Spent time working with the New Orleans Saints on Sean Payton's staff, LSU, the Joe Burrow season where he won the Heisman and the national championship. Much like the other three guys, a young up-and-comer. We've heard it all, right? Ends up getting the offensive coordinator gig with the Carolina Panthers under Matt Rule, and ended up getting fired in year 2. And Teddy Bridgewater didn't hold back when talking about Brady after the firing. And it's one of those things where personally I'm looking for that veteran experience, but I'm also looking for consistency. I want to be able to know and count on the play caller, the guy installing look, if we had Sean Payton as a head coach, if we had Andy Reid, if we had Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, an offensive play caller, I would be more open to just bringing anybody in that kind of matches the culture and the system. Somebody who could come in and present new ideas. I would be much more open to, cast that wide net. But when I'm looking at the Jets specifically here, and I'm understanding that Saleh virtually has no offensive input, he's not calling plays, his time is spent more so on the defense side of the football. That's where he came up. So the Jets' new offensive coordinator is going to have a ton of responsibility placed on his shoulders. Installing the offense, game planning throughout the week, calling plays, developing younger players, having to have a knack for finding offensive talent. Trying to fix the offensive line. These are all quarterback position. These are all major question marks going into next season, right? LaFleur, although I liked some things that he brought to the table, there were some clear negatives with the game planning, with play calling, with failing to get certain players the football, not sticking with the run game. We all know the problems with LaFleur. So this new OC has got to come in and have a solid plan, and he has to be able to carry his own weight to where Ulbrich and Saleh and the rest of this team can rely on him and say, hey, you know what? No matter which area of the offense that we look, we can see and tell that the team is getting better. And my personal opinion is that the Jets would need somebody with a big resume to come in and fill that job. So that's just my take on the situation. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.